There we are again. Welcome back at STRAAT. We're here for another STRAAT Talks. And while the temperature is lowering outside, I'm here in the museum by myself in front of the work of Davor Smoljan, my dear friend. I'm going to write some information so everybody knows what's going to happen. I see he's already to all right, so now you can see what's up. I'm waiting for Davor to join the chat. Hello everybody. It's getting colder in Amsterdam. I hope you're somewhere warm. Checking this out. Let me see. I can invite Davor. There he is. Hey!
What's up, buddy?
Look who's there. Davor, welcome. Welcome live at STRAAT Talks. Here live in Amsterdam in front of your work. For everybody that doesn't know Davor right now, that's good because we're going to chat about him for an hour. Davor's a dear friend of mine that I've known for quite some time. And he painted not one, but actually two canvases here in the museum. We're going to talk about one in the following hour. If you have any questions for Davor or for myself or about the museum or whatever, just comment below and we're more than happy to answer all your questions. I'm sure Davor is happy to answer them for you anyway. So, buddy, normally I start chatting and ask how everybody's doing. And in this case, I'm doing this to you. How are you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm good, man. First of all, let me start out with saying that I'm really honored to be invited and really appreciate the opportunity to be able to share a bit of what goes on in my mind before I engage in a project or how I approach life and art itself on a daily basis. So thanks for the invite. I'm good. I'm doing good, man. Days are getting colder. Winter is around the corner. So it's key to keep eating vitamins to take care of our immune system. And, all is well.
Yeah, perfect. Well, that's great to hear. I mean, I know it's getting colder because the museum is sort of outside and the outside is inside here. So it's also getting colder in the museum. If you're going to the museum, make aware that you're wearing some more clothes in the next couple of months because it's getting cold here. Anyway, we're here. You're doing well. The main question I always start, and why I started with the STRAAT Talks in the first time was the question: how is the law? What has been the? Sorry, there's a question already. So that's great. How has the last period been for you? I mean, the whole pandemic. Did you manage? Did you stay strong in the whole situation that happened to everybody in the last 1.5 years?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been quite the ride. It still is a ride globally, not just for me on a personal level. So navigating through that as a human being as to what's going on, what decisions that are being made, how it affects people, how it affects the general state of mind of a global state of mind, if you will, not just a community, but like the global community of just human beings is quite the challenge in itself. Although I'm not a stranger to isolation myself. 28 years ago, my parents, my sister and me, we fled my home country and my hometown of Sarajevo, capital of Bosnia, to because of the civil war that broke out there. We ended up
there you were born there, right?
Yeah. I am from Bosnia, hence my name. Some people might recognize it as a typical Balkan name, but so my parents were smart enough to decide, this is no quality of life for anybody, especially our children. So they took us to safety, me and my sister, and we ended up settling in the Netherlands, which was almost 30 years ago. But before we eventually ventured out to the Netherlands, we were in isolation because the city was under siege by attackers. So we'd have to go out in shelters and hide out. And it's a pretty extreme situation to go through when you're 12,
Yeah.
which I was at the time. But I depended on my parents and their care and their love and their support and their understanding and their, you know, I think probably the best decision that they've ever made is just to take us out of there.
Right.
So I have a different perspective on life, I guess, than probably most of the people around me that I've known who've been born here, who've grown up here. Luckily, never had to go through something like that.
Yeah.
But this type of isolation over the last year, especially, you know, we had electricity, we had water, we had food, Netflix, paint,
Netflix was
art. Yeah, Netflix
right.
did a lot of good business, man, over the last year.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, that's the luxury of that type of isolation or lockdown, I guess, because, you know, everything was within the reach of our hands, and there was no direct, you know, life-threatening danger in the form of war or unrest or grenades or bullets that have been fired at you if you go out on streets. So, you know, I was able, from my own perspective, to put that in perspective.
Yeah.
And just make the best of it to keep busy and keep creative. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it was completely different than your youth, of course, in Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Mm-hmm.
One question that came to mind is, why did you move to the Netherlands, or why did your parents decided to go to the Netherlands?
Well, my parents had a couple of options.
Right.
My dad was a journalist, so he had a lot of connections all over the world.
Okay.
And a lot of his former colleagues or friends who have before the war traveled out of the country based on, you know, just ambition to go out there and represent the country in a different part of the world.
Right.
He had connections in I believe in Washington, in America. Washington as in the city, not the state.
Yeah.
A couple of them were in Germany, some of them were in Sweden, but it was a question of how much, actually, how much money can we muster up to or collect to be able to make that kind of trip at that point in our lives. So that was like the main reason why we didn't go over there, where there were like serious possibilities for my dad to continue his work as a journalist over there.
Right.
And my mom got in touch with an old high school friend of hers who at that point, 28 years ago, was already living in the Netherlands for 25 years, who as a young woman fell in love with a Dutch man during her college years. Got married, settled.
Beautiful stories.
Yeah, and so she, at that point, obviously this procedure was ongoing in the Netherlands, where refugees were let into the country and accepted to follow certain procedures as to eventually become citizens. And she's like, you know, for seriously legitimate refugees in that sense of the word, that your life is threatened, that you really have to flee your country, there's a really serious and a good support system. So you should probably, or maybe even consider coming over here. And that was pretty much the message that my parents had gotten. And without like a serious plan or anything, we ended up in the Netherlands. That was October 1993, man.
Yeah, that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
So feeling Dutch and being a Dutch for quite some time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, I know I asked you a different question about the pandemic, but let's flow with your youth years and how you became interested in art in the first place. Do you remember the moment when that happened?
Oh, absolutely. Art was always there in my life. When I was a young kid, I used to love drawing all the time. I was reading, basically, you know, collecting and creating this huge amount of stacks of comic books as a kid. I really loved those.
I figured.
Watching cartoons like crazy. So that was like one of those things that in the 80s, I was born in 1981. So, you know, growing up in that, you know, a decade of the television revolution, we were bombarded with like a lot of that stuff. Let's say, for example, things like MTV or the DJ Cat show that BBC used to broadcast. And you have like these afternoon fillers of cartoons. So that'd be like, you know, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, all that stuff. So I grew up on that, a lot of that popular culture stuff. And I used to draw as a kid a whole lot until my late teens, I guess.
Yeah.
In those years, my focus kind of shifted more towards music.
Okay.
So I was writing more. So that's lyrics, poetry. I was what they call a lazy guitar player. I never had any formal education of sorts. I couldn't read music sheets or anything. I just, you know, autodidact learned myself how to play guitar by watching others.
Okay.
So I was
way.
into music a lot during my teenage years. Obviously, you know, the grunge scene had exploded at that time in our lives. So, you know, Nirvana, Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, all of those bands were all over the place. And, you know, those were my go-to kind of things as to how I would spend my time. And I'd buy CDs and I'd buy music magazines. And let's say that in my late teens, early 20s, I was very much into music, possibly thinking of maybe in the future doing something with that professionally, hopefully, you know, maybe with a band or something, break through, make music. And that kind of eventually shifted towards, other outlets, not necessarily going for it, because realizing that there's a whole bunch of right place, right moment, right people kind of aspects to it that really make sure whether you make it as a band or not. And it can be really exhausting, because a lot of my friends actually here in the Netherlands, a lot of them were in bands as well.
Okay.
Some of them semi-professional, some of them professional eventually. So I was around a lot of people who either played one or two or three instruments. So we were making music in our spare time all the time. And I used to see the struggle, right? And especially if you put your heart and soul into it, it really does take a toll on people when you have a job or you're trying to make a living, and then you have this passionate thing that you really want to go for.
Right.
So I guess I kind of moved away from that, or the idea that I wanted to be a musician in that sense of the word. And it was only until my late 20s or almost early 30s that I picked up art again, because it was always there. I never really did anything with it. I did kind of mess around with photography a little bit for a couple of years.
Okay.
Also not that professionally or anything, just kind of exploring a natural setting of things or surroundings or places or people that I just encounter. And that has kind of slowly, that part of my creative process has slowly shifted back into what I'm doing right now as a painter.
Right.
So anyways, as of late 20s, early 30s, I started picking up art again. And, you know, that was, 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And at that point, that turning point, because I was basically providing for my family as any man would. My daughter was like not even a year old at that time. I was working for big multinational corporations in business solutions on software sales. I was usually
sounds difficult.
Yeah, it is, and I'm just going to keep it at that. It was, you know, I was involved in marketing and sales parts of those organizations, the companies that I worked for. But you know, it just didn't deliver me the amount of happiness or joy that I thought that it would. And so, you know, slowly and gradually, I kind of, in my own spare time, decided to focus back on art again, and slowly and steadily in my spare time and in the little parking lot garage that I had, I started making works.
Yeah.
And a couple of years down the road, we met in 2015, where I had my first solo exhibit with Go Gallery in Amsterdam. So, you know.
I remember. Yeah. So it was a long way before you realized, let's just move to art again and focus on that.
Yeah,
to give a sort of summary.
Yeah, pretty much. I guess it was, you know, moving through that area or that community of like the harshness of a business world.
Yeah.
And how impersonal it can get, and how it can, you know, mainly focus on numbers and effectiveness and results, while the people are actually doing the work. So that was something that I couldn't relate to personally. And through that process, at one point, I got home, picked up a sketchbook. I remember at that time, Wasting Light, the album by Foo Fighters, came out on that day. I put on my headphones, and by the time the album finished, which was about an hour later, I had a full page of things going on there. And I'm like, oh, that's right, this is what I'm supposed to do. So that was kind of like a main turning point in my life. That was 2011, I believe.
Okay.
Exactly 10 years ago, around and about. So yeah, that was
That's not so long ago.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's kind of what made me realize again, like, oh, so this is where your heart is, and this is where
Right.
your pureness comes from, and where you can really kind of, in a good sense of the word, lose yourself in and go exploring. So that was like the most serious turning point for me to go ahead and go like, all right, this is something I should probably focus a little bit more on. And from there on, like I said, we ended up meeting in 2015, where I had my first solo exhibit in a gallery in Amsterdam. So that was quite the achievement within 4 years' time. So I was really happy with that.
Right. So you moved away from corporate life and music in some way to find your fulfillment in art. And how did it came to your first show in the Go Gallery? I have no clue actually. Back then you had a different artist name, or
yeah,
you had an artist name. Now
yep.
you're just under your own name.
Yep.
How did you came to that? To Disaster?
Well, I just
Which was
wanted
the
something.
name, eh?
Yeah, exactly. It was just an artist alias, no more than that. And I kind of wanted to not take myself too seriously in that sense of the word. Right. And as my initials for my name, DS, Davor Smoljan, obviously, when you take that apart and do something with it, my own phonetically written out disaster alias at that point was kind of
okay.
I guess a way to kind of have a laugh with myself about myself, because I didn't consider myself, anything of a serious or a seriously contributing artist to the art world. I was doing a lot of stencil work then. I was doing a lot of popular culture stuff.
A lot of pop art.
Yeah, that was very much happening at that point, like globally. So I do stuff like Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, and then every now and then it'll get a little political. Then I do a John Kennedy or a Martin Luther King, because I had a certain affiliation with these subjects.
Right.
And I guess it was 2012. There was a call, not necessarily an open call, but Shepard Fairey actually posted something on Facebook saying, "Hey, there's a really good art auction going on in London that is in support of Anti-Slavery International. So all of the proceeds would go to this organization, helping fight the modern form of slavery, as in girls that are taken away at a young age from certain countries and are forced into prostitution or stuff like that." Yeah. And this organization in London really made a point out of that to hopefully bring up as much money as possible to be able to do more. And I just really connected with that message, as in wanting to help, or from that past of my own of being that's awesome in a sense, but being forced to undergo a certain type of fear or terror. It really resonated with me, and I wanted to do something beautiful. And I just sent them a message through Facebook to the page saying, "Hey, I'd love to contribute in any way or shape possible." I did not nearly expect them to invite me to create an artwork or anything. I just really wanted to say, hey, if I can do anything. And like literally 24 hours later, I got an email from these guys. "We love your artwork. We would love for you to make something for the auction if you would." And I was amongst names like Matthew Small, Mr. Penfold. I believe even that I don't know if Shepard Fairey had to work there, but a lot of the prominent UK artists at that point. David Walker had to work there.
He's also part of the museum.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of big names that were really happening, especially in London at that age and at that time. So, and my work was there, like in the village underground, in the middle of Shoreditch, with all of these people and so much audience coming to it. And Rika had to work there, I remember. And
London was thrilling back then in those years.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was like, literally, that's how I consider myself at that point, artistically, like nobody. And I was like smack in the middle of this happening scene, and the doors opened, and the audience walked in, and I believe the auction kind of unofficially started. It wasn't necessarily that they were going to do bids or anything. So if somebody liked the work, they just basically approached some of the people of the organization and said, "Hey, how much is it?" And I'm buying it. Right. But like within 30 minutes that the door opened and the audience walked in, my work sold. So, and I was like, seriously, I was blown away. And I remember that I really wanted to give it a more texture and layering than I'd usually do with just the stencil work.
Yeah.
Still very proud of that work. I made a portrait of Martin Luther King as the icon when it comes to, you know, uniting and fighting any type or shape or form of slavery. And that work sold. So that was crazy to me, you know, to witness something like that in real life. I was super proud of like how much it would, you know, deliver from my end as well to the organization fighting for Anti-Slavery International. And from there on, things kind of went their own way. I had, you know, that bit of a resume that I can kind of relate to. And I believe that not too long after that, Amsterdam Street Art had a thing going on.
Right.
I didn't know any of the guys at that point. I just approached them, sent them an email, said, hey, I'd love to do something for your show. It was like a Christmas thing that they had going for a couple of weeks in December of that same year, 2012.
Yeah.
That's how I got to know everybody from Amsterdam Street Art. And like immediately from the starting point, those guys told me, hey man, we really want to introduce you to the owners of Go Gallery, because I think that they would love the work that you do. And that's how it happened. I did my first group show with them like 6 months after that, maybe 3/4 of a year after that. And
so which year are we talking about now?
I'm sorry?
Which year are we talking about now?
This is 2013, 2014, right. Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah. So, you know, fairly soon after that, it was the first group show. I had a couple of works in. And the idea of us coming together and making that collaboration of me presenting an entire solo exhibit within their entire gallery space was kind of growing on us, so to say.
Yeah.
And you know, 2015 seemed the right year for it at that time, and we discussed and agreed on a date and a time, and that's when it happened. And after that, it was just basically being able to kind of float on that experience and on those positive encounters that I had with art professionals within the art scene, that I was able to build on that profile or that resume to approach others and other institutions and say, hey, I'd love to do something. So
of course,
I guess the early start about 2012 and like a serious start 2014, 2015. So not even that long ago.
Yeah, perfect. So if I hear your story, and of course I know most of it from sharing stories in the last couple of years, but if I hear your story, you didn't become an artist as most of the artists that are here, like early days, 13, 14, as a graffiti writer or something like this. What inspired you? Or yeah, you already shared me the comics, but what inspired you in the style you're going for right now, and what you can see in the back, because that's obviously not the pop art anymore.
Yeah, good question. I think I just wanted to step away from the fact that I was recreating an existing icon or an existing idea within the art world. So, you know, popular culture references are easy, kind of easy go-to thing when you start out.
Yeah.
But, you know, I guess that pretty immediately after that first solo exhibit, which was a great success, and I'm hugely, hugely thankful and very humbled by the experience towards and by the Go Gallery, who have been given me, who had given me the opportunity to do so, and I'll never forget that. But like, I looked at my own work during those weeks of display, and I kind of thought some bits of this I really like on a personal level, and other bits I go like, you know, this is something that somebody else already created. So I'd take stuff like a Mickey Mouse and put it into a darker setting, or a more political setting. When I would, you know, in essence, I was kind of with that show, which was called Scars and Hypes, which was an abbreviation and a commentary on Stars and Stripe, on I guess the American influence through popular culture on our modern world today, and even in politics as well. So I was kind of, you know, sometimes not so subtly and sometimes subtly criticizing it. But then I thought, you know, this is too easy from my perspective. I'm not the first one to do it. A lot of this imagery has been created by somebody else, and I'm putting into a new context, which is, you know, there's nothing wrong with that. I just myself at that point didn't feel it anymore, because I was doing it a couple of years, and then, you know, I just kind of tried to find my voice. And I believe that a year after that, 2016, was the first work that I made for the museum, and I really wanted to push myself This was actually the second work that you're
Ah,
saying.
this is the second. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and I had that the little cuddly toy for my daughter, the
Yeah.
woof that she would walk around with everywhere we go, and that became kind of a symbol for me for like happiness and something energetic, something beautiful, something pure.
Yeah.
And when I got to talking to people who were at that time setting up the museum and curating and organizing, they basically offered me a plethora of opportunities and choices, as in when it comes to surfaces and how big I needed to be or I wanted to be. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, seriously, I wasn't even expecting that it would be that big or anything.
Right.
So I got there. It was, I believe, April or March of 2016. And I had this big, I guess, almost a 10-foot high piece, which is almost 3 meters in the metric system when we refer to it, kind of rounding about maybe 250 to somewhere.
No, yeah, I think it was it was a different one than
It
this
was
one
slightly
is.
smaller than that, and it was
Right. Yeah.
horizontally positioned.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I was in front of that work, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna go rock it and see if I can, use spray paint to come close, or at least make an effort to come close to realism in any form or way. Because at that point, I have been playing with it through my sketches and my drawings that I made in my own time and in my own studio, and I did do some oil painting at that point. But I just went for it, and 2 days of work, and I was really, really surprised by how much I was able to actually create what I had in mind. And I had a
It was
knack
very
for it,
realistic.
obviously, technically, and it really worked out. And especially
Yeah.
in a way, I guess because it was so big, it worked really well as well,
Yeah.
giving me the space, the literal space on a canvas to go bigger and work less detailed than you would on a smaller canvas with little pencils or little brushes.
Yeah.
And then it got good to me, and a couple of months later, I was invited back again, and that's when I, in September, made the work that you're sitting in front of right now.
Right. Yeah. So no, but going back to the first one, it's not on display right now, to call it like that. But it looked very realistic and very sweet in some way, because it's the what's the toy of your daughter.
Yeah, it's a plush toy, so it's
Yeah.
it's a lot of fabric and texture that's actually very soft, as well
Yeah.
as with the pastel colors. It's kind of beige tinted.
Yeah.
For the people who are interested, scroll back down on my profile once this is
Right.
done. You'll see it. You'll see the flying little toy somewhere.
Yeah, it was
Around
actually my
2016.
go-to present for my friends when they became a father of a daughter or a son. So it's actually in a couple of my friends' houses at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and they're happy with it. And the one behind me, I have the one with the hearts, I believe.
Yeah, you have the Four of Hearts. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But what's the story behind this one? Because it's in the corner. We have 5 different themes here. It's in the theme of grounded, and here the works are more city inspired or in any way related to the place or to the city or to the country.
Mm-hmm.
But this work for sure is related to this warehouse in particular. So maybe you can share bits of the story behind the making of it.
Yeah, absolutely. While I was there for the first piece, for the little cuddly toy that eventually became a larger than life cuddly toy, obviously.
Yeah.
We were cleaning up some of the stuff that was ongoing, because this was around King's Day in the Netherlands. So there was a special event outside of the inner space of the museum.
Yeah.
Ongoing, and I was helping the organization people from the museum clean up some stuff and some scaffoldings. And while we were doing that, I found these 2 playing cards, the 10 that you see behind you, and the Four of Hearts. And he was just lying on the floor, and they were obviously weathered, and they had endured quite some pounding, I guess, and driving over and serious weather. And as you can see in the work itself, they were kind of almost falling apart, but they were still holding on to their dear life, so to say. They were still intact in a certain sense of the word.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. Just the immediate image of these two cards in front of me on the floor. I just picked them up. And I remember saying, I'm going to take this home with me because I know for a fact that I'll do something with this artistically. I just don't know what it is yet.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of months down the road, when I was invited to make another one, and they're like, yeah, people were like, do you have a suggestion as to like what you'd like to paint? I was like, remember that those playing cards? They're like, yeah. I was like, I want to do that, but then bigger if possible. And they're like, yeah, come on over. So that's the idea that you see there. Initially, I kind of wanted to paint it as this painting that you see behind me. This is just the front part.
Yeah.
This is the painting that I had made a little less than, I guess, a year later than I made the big one for my solo exhibit that I had at the OD Gallery in Amsterdam.
Yeah.
But as I was trying to create a certain vibe with it and do something with it digitally, I'm not that much of a hero or a star when it comes to digital editing or whatever. But my dad is like a pro photographer dude who, you know, goes out and shoots these photos that instantly become these masterpieces, right?
Yeah.
So, and he's the Photoshop king, and I'm like, well, can you help me, you know, smoothen out certain bits for this idea that I have for this work? And he was the one who actually, because I wanted to the diagonal line, I wanted to connect the front and the back part of the playing card, as you can see. And just have a straight diagonal line through it, a very straightforward kind of idea. And he's like, okay, I did that for you, but I kind of thought it was static. So I kind of blended the both together, which was his idea. And I was like, this is so much better than I could have thought of myself. So he kind of made that contribution to this work as well. Thanks, Dad. And,
I think he's watching, right?
Yeah, probably is. Or my mom is, or they are.
What is his name?
On one device. Yep.
Yeah, I saw him pop up a bit ago.
So the credit goes to like the design bit of like how subtle we made the crossover between the front and the back. That's all him. You know, when he delivered that edit, I was like, oh man, this is so much better than what I had in mind. So that's still him. Yep.
It's a beautiful story behind the making of, right? I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
It's like for us, this museum is important and as well for the artist, and this adds a little bit of a story to your piece in some way.
And I guess why it really appealed to me, as like you would go like, well, how and why would such a weathered, almost falling apart piece of like a playing card would appeal to you on a personal level? But to me, it was like the epitome of what we do as human beings, how we discard of things that we're done with, or fail to continue seeing beauty in things that are created over time. And this is something that kind of happened, not because somebody intentionally wanted to ruin this card, but probably because they either lost it or it just fell out of somebody's pocket or out of an entire deck, and it just, you know, stuck around there for apparently a very long time. And it was time for us to meet, for me and the cards. And you know, the image of it like totally spoke to me on so many levels and resonated with me. And I'm like, I want to give this card a real serious platform so others hopefully can see or feel the same thing as I did.
Yeah, you were dedicated.
Absolutely.
So this was 2016. What happened after? I mean, I know you painted some outside balls. Hello to Brazil. But how do you classify yourself? Are you like there's always like this discussion: graffiti writers, street artists, urban artists. How do you classify yourself in this list of the way you became an artist and you painted in the streets and in galleries and museum? How do you see yourself in this matter?
Well, my tagline is on my own personal profile, and what I say to people personally, if I meet them, is that when they ask, I'm a painter first and a muralist second. So in order to be able to complete a mural, which is hopefully, you know, in most cases outside so that the audience or the people can actually see it, you need to be able to paint. You need to be able to understand what color does, what texture does, what hueing does, what that skill of, you know, transferring one idea to a canvas as an image or as a presentation of what you want to say visually. That's the main thing that I start out with. So I either, get out my sketchbook or a drawing paper and I draw things, sketch out, or put more hours into it to master the transition of hues or contrast, dark and light. Then I paint things to understand what color does, what specific types of paint does. I love oil paint. That's the only thing I'm dedicated to. So in order to be able to do anything anywhere in the world, whether that's commercially for a client or whether that's for like a mural event, I at all times I'm a painter. That's I guess how I classify myself as.
Of course, yeah. Well, your father is watching, by the way.
Nice.
I'm sure you've seen it as well.
Yeah, he's mixing Dutch and
yeah,
obviously.
I saw that one. Yeah. So I've seen your show at the Go Gallery. I've seen. I think I also went to the show at the OD Gallery. At least I saw the.
Yeah, you did. You did.
Right.
You were there.
The peace sign.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah. And I did go to the one in Ede, your hometown. Because that's again a different. Well, it's the evolvement of your style of painting. I think, and referring to one of your passions before, like photography. I think you can really see that in that style of painting.
Yeah, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. I guess it's a combination at this point, because that question has to be answered twofold. Part of your question, question in the previous statement was also, where did you go from creating this piece from the museum in 2016 to where are you now? And that kind of connects with what you're saying. I guess these gallery shows that I've had in 2015, 17, and 2019, so that's one every 2 years. Not an intentional thing. Just
not a good number.
Turn out that way.
Yeah, it's a good number.
I guess they were all kind of exploratory in the sense of the word, where I wanted to communicate a certain theme visually. 2017, the show at OD Gallery, for example, was all about color and texture, and using as many different materials as possible to present something and to tell a story with, and to connect the whole of the works presented together.
Right.
So there'd be collage works on wood panels. I'd pour some concrete in some steel frames, and to kind of simulate a street. Yeah. Or the anarchy sign, I had that one up as well.
Yeah.
This was one of the works that was in there. The painted 10 of clubs.
Yeah. Did you do the little toy soldiers back then?
Yep. That was the same show. I basically the toy soldiers. I placed them in a way that they were in the shape of a peace sign, but they were all aiming the weapons at each other. Yeah. So the contradiction of going to war for the sake of peace, all those things. I was pretty proud of that show because I was kind of able to get all these messages across that I obviously had sitting within like my mind for quite some time at that point, because they really needed to get out. And then 2019, 2 years later, which was now 2 years ago, I had kind of a whole idea as to what inspires me as a human being and as an artist the most, which is just like the most regular, the most random, and the most natural, pure, and unedited scenes that you could come across in the street. And that could be encounters with people with a certain expression they have, certain style they have, a certain idea that comes along as to kind of radiate who they are energetically or as a human being. And that was the culmination of that in the Source exhibit that I had together with my friend Marcel Perishable Rush, that we're going to present in Ada, who also does amazing things based on stuff that he finds on streets. And so we kind of combined those stories together and basically gave a nod and a sort of a visual love letter to the streets, I guess, in a way. And in that show, I indeed had a couple of paintings that I initially photographed while I was in San Francisco in 2010. Right. So these images were literally on my own hard drive and on my computer hard drive for like almost 10 years. And this is when they needed to come out. So I was really proud of those. And I remember a couple of people walking in from a distance, seeing these works, saying, "Hey, I didn't know you included photography in your work. I'm like, it's not photography,
Right.
it's painted. Go ahead and see it. So that was
Yeah.
a really nice compliment. To
Especially the shoes, I remember.
yeah, yeah.
The shoes hanging on the,
Yeah,
what was
that's
it,
a
the
work
telephone
that
line?
did really well. A lot of people, complete and total strangers, that responded to it constantly on social media.
Right.
And it's nice that you bring that up, because I'm planning to hopefully before the end of the year do a print release of that. And yeah, so
Go buy it, people.
sorry.
I said, go buy it, people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It'd be nice. It'd be nice. I'm always humbled by people who actually, make the time and to spend the money and buy my work. It's what keeps us artists alive and floating and keeping our head above water in these strange times. But yeah, that's a work that did really well. And I had an initial feeling towards what I saw. And, when you get people, most of the people felt the same way about it, but some other people had different perspectives on it. And it has so many meanings when you, for the ones that don't know it, it's once again, once this is done, you can scroll down my profile and see it. It's basically shoes tied together on their shoelaces, thrown over an electricity wire that I photographed from the streets of San Francisco up in the sky. So the background is the blue sky. There's a diagonal line of electricity wires, and the shoes are hanging over it. And it has different meanings. It can be a gangland territory signage, so to say.
Yeah.
It can be, it can mean that, there is drug availability or a drug dealer somewhere nearby, because those are kind of the unofficial signs of the
I
underworld.
thought that was the sign.
Yeah. And sometimes it's just, I'm done with my old shoes. They're torn down, they're broken down. I'm just going to toss them over the electric wires. So,
Yeah.
and that's what I loved about it. It's a very typical street image that we've been introduced through television or through through hip hop music or through movies or whatever. And I really, really liked that image. And, I was happy to see that a lot of people who responded to it had the same emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a print should work, could work.
Yeah, hopefully. We'll see how it does. I'm thinking of releasing 2 different sizes, one smaller one and one similar to the actual size of the work.
Beautiful.
So yeah, hopefully I'll be able to get around to that before the end of the year.
Yeah, and of course we did a print together, or we did this print that is
At the museum.
there.
Yep. Yeah, we did that's the one. I believe there's like 3 more left, or are they all gone? I have no idea.
No, well, I just spoke to my shop manager and he said they're all sold out. So
nice.
That's good.
Good news on the way. That
I'm
will
not
help
sure
in
if you're
producing the new prints. Thanks, guys.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're also going to do the other one, the one that I have, the hearts.
I did actually. That was a limited edition of 10, and I believe you have one of the initial 10 that I did. I usually have a couple of artist proofs, and if I'm kind of happy about it, kind of maybe doubting whether I should put it up for sale, I maybe tweak it a little bit with brushes, and then give it as a gift to people or something, because I don't necessarily think that it really comes close to the natural vibe or the actual vibe of the real painted work.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I'll do that again. It did really well though. I did both of the prints. Also this one completely self-supported, self-produced, together with self-financed, actually I should say, with the help of the boys and the friends at Amsterdam Street Art, Shem and Lars. Shout out to them. So
great guys.
yeah, both of the prints did really well. The prints of the card behind me and the 4 cards. Funny thing is, this was mostly bought by men, and the 4 cards was mostly bought by women. So that was an interesting kind of analytic to take away from that. Well,
I've got the heart, so.
Yeah, it's because I'm all heart for what you do, my man. That's right. As a friend.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, well, that's a lovely thing. So what are you working on right now? What is the next step in your career as a painter, to call it like this?
Well, I've been lucky enough to, as of 2018, where I was invited together with my friend Hugo Mulder to paint a huge wall during the Miami Art Basel Week.
Yeah, I remember that.
At the old RC Cola plant, we did a really, really big piece. I was not expecting that to be on my surface, or the amount of space that I had to paint. When I got there, I was like, holy shit, I'm going to have to really get to work to this to have it done within a time span of 10 days. And we did, and I did. So that was a good one. And it kind of made me want to explore that a little bit more. After that, I had opportunities close to the Netherlands and within the Netherlands itself to explore that idea a little bit more. So I made a couple of semi-large scale or large scale murals, either commercially or just on my own.
Yeah.
I did something with Fred. Fred in Belgium, in Antwerp.
Fred and Filou.
Friend. Yep, Fred and Filou, his dog, lovely dog. Shout out to Fred. He sent a personal message before today to wish me luck.
That's sweet.
He's part of this super creative hub in Antwerp that basically it's a little smaller than the museum itself. It used to be an old factory that they've kind of turned around and transformed into this amazing collection of mural works and whatnot, and artistic spaces that are going on there. There's a brewery there even.
I've seen some pictures. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it's you should really, when you get the time, go out there, venture out and see some of the things. It's
right.
So that was that, and then there were a couple of murals that I did during events. Last year, I was able to keep busy because for some reason, even though there was a global pandemic going on, I got invited by a couple of entrepreneurs here in the Netherlands to paint their walls, which were really sizable walls. One of them was also a new brewery in Apeldoorn. It's a really big wall that I got to paint commercially, obviously. Mm-hmm. Another connected entrepreneur through that brewery also invited me to paint something in his home. Then I got invited by a boxing school in Apeldoorn to paint a really huge wall for their establishment, which I was also really proud of. They were obviously struck by all the mandates by the government, obviously, as it's a contact sport to shut down classes for a while. So there's a top part of that wall that I still want to finish with some lettering that they requested. That'll happen sometime next year, probably as well. I had the opportunity to work with STRAAT a couple of times, which is a global institution here that focuses on everything that is subcultural, and especially when it comes to street art. They have done some amazing things here in Ede. Shout out to Sander, who sets up all these events, and I was able to paint a couple of things, even on my own initiative as well. I was like, hey man, I've seen a couple of walls. Can you kind of arrange or help me, give me a push in the right direction as to who to approach about this? We were able to make a couple of those happen. So that was nice. And when it comes to the future projects, right now, like I said at the beginning of this interview, it's wintertime. So, mural stuff isn't happening as it's way too cold pretty much anywhere here in the northern hemisphere.
Yeah.
So I've had these ideas and these encounters over the last couple of years with people through travels, through, going to Miami, kind of
Well, Thailand. Don't forget about Thailand.
Yeah, Thailand as well. Obviously painted that there somewhere too. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That was through you to connected me through to Alex Face, and then he connected me to people in Chiang Mai when I was able to paint a wall. That was one of the best experiences I had as an artist. Yeah. And as a human being. So I really love that. Thank you for reminding me of that. But as you can see, it's a luxury problem that you then, end up in a situation that you keep forgetting situations and moments of murals that you painted because you've been able to do so many more after just the one that you started out with years ago. So that's something I'm really blessed with and happy to be able to do. Hopefully in the future, a little bit more large scale mural projects. There's a few things that I'm going to actually help co-curate, hopefully within, let's say a time span of about 6 to 8 months. Okay. Don't want to share about that too much just yet because it's still all in the making. Yeah. But yeah, there's an interesting project close by here that I'm really eager to help co-curate. There's a couple of walls here in my hometown that really need some vibrance. That's basically purely on my own initiative. That has nothing to do with me being paid for it. I just wanna lively up the place with something beautiful. That's good. There's a project with young refugees that have been settled into like a home. These are all teens. They're all boys under 18 that have just come out of war zones like Afghanistan or Iraq or somewhere else.
Okay.
And they're basically seeking asylum, and they've been able to escape the terrors of their home country, and they're together in this home, and I want to do a project with them. I had made an initial start as to how I want to approach that, but there's way more kind of I guess paths that need to be tread upon or traveled before it can actually come to life, so to say.
Yeah.
So there's that project. So these are kind of the more serious mural projects that I have ongoing for the next year. And I'm going to lock myself up during these winter months in my studio and make new works.
Right. Awesome. So
Yeah.
there was a question of Laila Kurbekovic.
Layla, yeah, I know her. Hey, Layla. She used to be besties with my sister while we were in Sarajevo. Yeah.
Ah, okay. So she's waiting for some work or works in Sarajevo.
Yeah.
I did see there were some walls coming up there lately
Yeah.
in Bosnia.
Thing is, I was actually in touch with Layla just shortly before the pandemic. In 2019, she introduced me to an urban magazine called The Urban Magazine in Sarajevo, where she conducted an interview with me through email exchange, and she kind of that way wanted to introduce me to the world of Sarajevo now, as a former inhabitant of the city myself, who now lives in the Netherlands as an artist, all grown up.
Great story.
That way, kind of paving the way of maybe doing something sizable and something remarkable, hopefully in Sarajevo on a big wall. Yeah. And we were actually planning to make some of those things happen in 2020, but I think a lot of people were making plans for 2020 just in general. Yeah. Be whether they are an artist or not, but everything just kind of went to hell in that year. So I guess I put that on pause until more things are available, more things are a bit more flexible when it comes to that. But yeah, I hope to maybe within the next year or two do something there as well.
Yeah, well, fingers crossed for that. Just another question that comes to mind is what other artists inspire you? Maybe not in your work, but as an artist in general. I think we should.
Yeah,
I'm going to answer
good question.
Your question.
I think I always loved the surrealism painters, and postmodernist guys. Let's say, for the sake of like a general reference, Salvador Dali. Was one of them. Absolutely. Not that my work is surreal or anything. I just love this approach to the whole thing. Mm-hmm. I like the work of Edward Hopper. I guess when you go to like that classical postmodern stuff, there is some there that are maybe unfamiliar. Most people are unfamiliar with, but there's some Dutch masters as well. I'm a huge Karel Willink fan. I suggest people go and look that up.
Okay.
Pieke Koch. I went to an exhibit of his a couple of years ago in the museum in Utrecht. Yeah, where they had his entire kind of work laid out from like the early years until the very last painting. I believe I have a post of that on my Instagram profile.
Oh, you do? Well, okay.
Called The Tightrope Walker, which was the very last painting he painted. And it took him about 3 final years of his life to finish that. And it's just an amazing painting. Everything about it is so, it's very serene. And while it's almost, well, you might describe it as static, it's so dynamic and it's great. Okay. I love it. So these are some of the more classical ones. And if we go into like people who really inspire me right now, who really do amazing things, that is without a doubt, that's Sebas Velasco.
Always waiting for this.
Absolutely. He's, I just get goosebumps thinking about what that guy's actually amazing able to do and create with his mural work. It's insane. Yeah. And an artist that I've been in touch with over the last year, basically because he either painted a wall somewhere that I got across by browsing my home feed on my Instagram account, and that is Jorge Charrua. I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He then ended up, we kind of found out through following each other and exchanging messages back and forth, that he's actually quite well befriended with Nuno Viegas, who we also know, who also has worked in the museum, also a great artist.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the main things that Jorge and myself have exchanged over the messages is that we are really eager to do something together. He's one of the painters that I
Cool.
really like in
Nice.
his approach when it comes to expression, to his color
Yeah.
palette, to his composition. And just very recently, I told him, man, I would love to do a wall with you sometime. And he's like, same, man, same. So I hope actually that's sooner than later. So when it comes to inspiration as to how people approach their work, I think these three that I've just mentioned as of today are the ones that really stand out to me.
That would be amazing if you're
Yep.
going to do something together with Jorge.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait. I can't wait.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I'm through my questions. I've not seen any other questions from the people that are checking in.
I've had one of them, so I'm just gonna jump in and elaborate on that one. I got a question as to how do you stay true to what it is that you do, and how do you keep following your heart, especially when it's something like art, with not necessarily what most people consider as a necessity in their life. We obviously do as artists, you as a creative director, as a creative person yourself, and an aspiring painter, I might say. Let's not rule that out. That might happen on a certain level.
Let's hope so.
I guess that, to answer that question, I've been through a lot of things in my life in the way of, I definitely, there was always a knack for the creative, whether, like I said, first it was drawing, then it was music, then it was photography. So I always knew it had to be something that is created from an urge, and it's done with and by hands. Maybe pausing that, or taking the time, sometimes consciously, sometimes subconsciously, or knowingly or unknowingly, not putting as much effort or time into the things that I really wanted to do, gradually growing into this person that I thought I should be, or an individual working for big companies, making money, making a living, realizing that those are the things that don't make me happy as a human being in life. Realizing later on in life that, oh wait, there's that thing that I have access to as a skill or a talent that I should explore. Maybe I should do a little bit more with it. I think that, staying true to who you are as a person, and whether that's, paint, whether that's guitar, whether that's a camera, whether that's the pen that you're writing with, or the stories, or, nowadays, obviously laptops and keyboards. Whatever the type of skill that you have, or that you think that you might have, and even if you know that you haven't explored it as much as you'd like, I'm urging everyone to do that as much as possible. We live in a world that is ever changing, that is ever demanding, that is ever challenging on so many aspects, where we almost, as mankind, forget what it is that we're supposed to do. And that is create stuff, either individually or together, and make stuff. And that's what we're really good at, instead of, focusing on everything that's so easy to topple are the very ground that we stand on. We can be so destructive, coming from, obviously the background that I come from, which is a damn waste of time. We only get, this one ride in this vehicle that we have. We should make the most of it. So whoever you are, if you're watching, if you're listening, and you go like, there's something I always wanted to explore. I mean, how many times have you not spoken to people who say, oh, there's always that thing that I wanted to do, but I never really did. Now is the time to do it. So, now is as good time as any.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a beautiful way to finish, but there's one more question of, I'm not sure if it's Roderick or Dirk, but which other talents
Dirk, my buddy, which
other talents would you like to explore?
Which other talents would you like to explore? Currently, actually, I am doing I'm dabbling in a bit of videography. So I'm doing a little bit of filming, a little bit of, semi-directing work. I wouldn't say it's professional or anything. There's something that's been on the table with a couple of friends of mine. They're in a really cool band in Utrecht, really heavy music. They're called Mary Fields. We had the idea of me directing a video of theirs sometime in the future, which was then, this was 5 years ago. But they've gone through a couple of changes and shifts with the band members as well, and kind of hoping to sometime in the near future kind of reopen that discussion or that conversation with them, and make this one-shot video that I've had in mind for years that I really want to do with them. So yeah, videography is something that I've kind of slowly and easily
Okay.
and gradually shifting towards the kind of add to my resume as when it comes to visual arts.
Cool. That sounds great. Well, we
It is
can't
great.
wait to we can't wait to see more about it, and a couple of projects that you just mentioned and you couldn't say anything about it. We're also excited to hear more about those projects. Keep it
Yeah,
up,
I've been
my
a part
friend.
of something really amazing this last weekend, and I just want to touch a little bit on that because this is also something that's going to take a little bit more time to reach the bigger audience. But I was in a recording studio with world-class musicians who were doing recording sessions for a very, very special project that I got to be a part of through my lens, so to say. So I was recording this on camera, this process of doing photography, hopefully enhancing that experience once this becomes available on platforms digitally and physically. Some artistic development, obviously, from my end, as when
Okay.
it comes to design and then the cover and the inlay and that stuff. I'll be closely involved in that process. This might take a little while for everybody. So, but yeah, this kind of combines all of these things that I've been dabbling with as a creative person all my life, all in one. So that's a really nice thing to be a part of.
Wow.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah, man.
Perfect. Well, thanks again for all the passion in the last hour, and
Absolutely.
for answering the questions, telling more about your history and your career. I think we want to wish you all the best from me in the museum and everybody watching. Thanks for watching at home, at the warm home you're staying in right now.
Yeah, I'm just
Thanks
able to wear a
again.
t-shirt here, man. It's nice and warm here.
No, it's getting freezing cold here in the museum.
Yeah.
But it's totally worth it to catch up with you. Thanks for everybody tuning in. We'll be back next week with Street Art Frankie, also Dutch artist, also part of the museum, of course. Davor, my friend, thanks again for this hour. We'll stay in
Thank you for
touch,
inviting me. Thank you for the time.
of course.
Thank you for the attention and the platform to be able to share this. I want to thank everybody who asked questions, who joined in, who listened. I hope it wasn't too much of a monologue or a boring thing to go through during an entire hour while most people are having their dinner.
Right.
And for those who have postponed their dinners, thanks for that. And I can't wait to see you in person, buddy. I can't wait to see you again.
Yeah, perfect, man. We'll see each other soon.
Absolutely.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye
man. Bye bye.
bye. Bye, Malou.